Yeah, so if we start with the e-reader, so the electronic ink is where the actual screen comes to the actual surface rather than being behind a plane of glass. It has a contrast, a much higher contrast, almost like actual print on a page. So despite electronic screens being, high definition, they just don't match the kind of contrast that we find comfortable from a book or an e-reader. So that's why e-readers are typically more comfortable. You only need to watch people using devices. So if you look at device size, you watch people on the phone and it's always this distance away. And even if you've got presbyopia and you find you're focusing more difficult, you tend to still pull your phone closer than you would a tablet or a screen. So having a bigger screen means that you're going to hold it further away. That's less demand on your focusing sort of system and your convergence. So that could be helpful. There's a different kind of theory going on with myopia that maybe computers are a little worse than small screens. So I'm interested to see watching sort of that space. And I'm not sure why the theories around that, but that's still early days. I think that comes into some of the other things we'll talk about in terms of, just taking breaks from what you're doing. You can theorize that if you're reading a book, you're taking these natural breaks as you're flipping the page. If you're on a device that has other apps, then there's always the distraction of heading into other apps where your attention's captured and you're looking at the screen for more often compared to tapping pages if you're reading a book on a Kindle app or on the screen. So, and it doesn't matter what device you're using, you have to pay attention to what you're actually doing with the rest of your posture. And you got that sort of rounded shoulder and pushing neck forward that we see you look at a lot of young people walking around and it's almost become part of their structure to have that change in their body shape. And so the same things that we might recommend to look after your visual ergonomics is the same for your posture. The old classic rule was you make a fist, stick it on your chin, stick your elbow out, and that's your natural sort of working distance. And what you're basically wanting to do is create a right angle and not have it closer but further away. And so that becomes that natural distance, having the page parallel to your face. So if you've got a tablet or a book on the table, you have it tilted up towards you so that you're not having to kind of lean over the desk and create that strain on your posture.
One of the things I see when I go into the electronics shops is the curved screens, which I gather are popular with gamers. I've never sort of got one of them myself, but is there any evidence that those curved screens are beneficial?
Yeah, I've actually what I'm sort of I've got my camera mounted on a curved screen at the moment, and I get a lot of questions from patients of how do you find the curved screen? And the story was I needed a new, bigger screen towards the end of, I think, COVID. We were coming out of COVID, and I wanted a screen of a particular size, and the only thing I could get is a curved screen. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I remember curved TVs being a bit of a fad, and they disappeared. And I thought, well, it's interesting that a decade later, why are curved monitors still around? And doing what I do, I went, well, let's look at the research. And the research actually indicates that within a certain range of radii of curvature, they do reduce eye strain. And I have to say, I do find it more comfortable to use the curved screen. Once you get used to the curve, you've got to make sure you're front onto it. So there's a few things there. But yes, there are little things you can do, like adding a curved screen to help with improving your visual comfort. Absolutely.
And I guess like one of the advantages of digital material is that you can usually adjust the font size. So for older people, or if you are struggling, you can increase and bump up the fonts, whatever it is that you're looking at. So I guess that is one
Yeah.
potential advantage.
And look, and it can be a little bit of a trap, but yes, but effectively you're taking the demand off the focusing system. I'm run by the model that most of our visual fatigue starts with the focusing system. So anything you can do to help the focusing system be more relaxed and is going to help. I think your brain still registers how far away that object is, though. So there is still some fatigue that can occur. So it's a bit of a short-term strategy. So again, the presbyopes come in and say, "Oh, look, I get by making the font bigger on my phone." But if you ask them, they're still getting some fatigue. And so, and everyone's journey into presbyopia is a little different. For me, I didn't notice things being blurry up close. I just caught myself holding my breath and not reading as much, and kind of it showed that there was a bit more effort going on. So some people it will be more of a strain and an effort, whereas others it's a definite I have to push things further away, or it's blurry and I just can't focus. And so it's that extra effort that some people don't realize is something we sometimes need to provide some relief for, not just whether it's clear or not. And part of our slogans are, good vision's more than clear sight. And it's in the background of that is it's how much effort are you using in order to see.